Hello, welcome to my holiday episode on navigating grief with boundaries during the holiday season. We know grief is hard enough, right? But holiday time can make things harder, more challenging. And so today I'm going to share with you my personal story, a story with grief from last year when I attended a holiday party that I had no business being at. And I end with four really essential steps that I personally and professionally recommend you adopt during this holiday season just to help you navigate this season and your grief with more ease. Okay, so before I get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Diane Bonilla. I'm a grief guide. I'm also a seasoned mental health therapist for nearly 30 years now and grief therapist. I'm a master practitioner of hypnotherapy and NLP. And what I do is I help women transform their grief experiences so they begin to see life through a new lens, so they're not stuck anymore in the same grief over and over again. I basically help women begin to move forward. So I do have a unique approach, and it comes from years in the grief field, but also from my own personal grief experiences. And if you don't know, I lost my mom last year, August of 23, to a 5-6 year battle with Alzheimer's disease. And that was a big loss for my family. And you'll hear more about that in a moment. I utilize a 7-step healing plan with clients that really is unique for each person. And it's really the start and the foundation to the progress they make after that. We use hypnosis meditations, which are beautiful and wonderful. It's how I have healed a lot of my grief. We utilize NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. It is subconscious reprogramming or rewiring the grieving brain. When we work together, we work on igniting your hope, releasing what's holding you back so you're not stuck, and helping you embrace a new purpose, all while you honor the mom or dad that you are grieving. So also, I'm a wife. I'm a mom myself of two, I think, amazing young adults, and also a proud mom of our 15-year-old beagle, Brody. So just some quick reminders or announcements before I get started on this episode. If any of this resonates with you today and you really feel like you need some support moving forward with your grief healing, I do offer a 30-minute complimentary strategy call where we can discuss if working together makes sense. There's a book a call link in the information I sent. And basically, you will leave the call with more clarity, whether we work together, whether we decide to work together or not. So it's something to consider if you are feeling like you need that support. If you haven't joined my free Facebook community yet, well, please come on in. It's a brand new group. We're just starting out, but inside the group, I go live and do trainings for the group. I also provide a lot of free resources, and it's a community that's nurturing and a community of women that understand you. So again, that link will be in the information that I sent this recording on. So let me talk about my story. That's why you're here. 4 months ago, not 4 months ago, but 4 months almost to the day after my sweet mom passed away. So last year, my mom passed in August of 23. And so 4 months later, I found myself in the throes of the holiday season. You know, the hustle, the bustle, the pressure. I know you know this. It was all around me. And I was standing still in this grief fog. It would be my first Christmas without my mom. And this was a holiday she loved and really went all in on. I don't know, maybe you have somebody in your life that is like that. Maybe you're like that. There were moments that we honestly, yes, my family, my husband and I, we would laugh and think, this is a bit much. We called her Nana, of course. But the truth is, we actually really loved it. And, you know, walking into her home back then was like a wonderland of sparkle, of greenery. I mean, the kids were just like eyes wide open. And It was just magical to be there. There was always something new each year. She had different collections, nativity, carol singers, you name it. And over the years, there were so many beautiful memories that we made as a family. And when the kids were eventually old enough, in elementary school, they began to spend the night there, and their minds just melted into the magic at Nana's. And I share this with you because I just want you to sort of get a picture as I go down memory lane here of what that world looked like and what I no longer had that summer, or I mean, sorry, that holiday season. So now flash forward to last Christmas, and as I navigated trying to find joy while also allowing my grief to be felt and released, I thought about whether or not I should go to an annual party that I went to really for many years. It's a fun group. With some of them, I'm closer, than others, but I basically knew everybody there. And honestly, I decided I would go. Well, as I'm thinking about the why of that decision back then, I realize now I was, like I said, in a bit of a grief fog. I was really doing my best to hold it together, and have as normal, in quotes, a holiday as reasonably possible. I was also fearful. I was fearful of grief coming on so strong that I wouldn't be able to handle it. And so I was looking for ways to distract myself. And I thought this will be a good distraction, right? Unfortunately, as you're going to hear, my body and mind had a different agenda. Um, at this party, okay, I was surrounded by festivity. The host did a marvelous job with decor and food and you name it. So wonderful friends surrounded by them and support. And yet I never really felt fully present. I remember watching people having conversations with one another, just like I was watching TV. I was detached, really. I felt alone in a room full of people. Have you ever felt that way, like with your grief? Have you been like in a crowded situation? Maybe you don't know anyone and feel alone, or maybe you do. Maybe you're with your family or friends and you just feel that disconnect. You feel alone, maybe you feel lonely. Um, my grief back then felt heavy, like I was carrying this thing around, and it was sort of blocking me from like moving on with the rest of the world. So when I'm at this party, it's starting to end, I'm really ready to go home because I'm realizing, like, what am I doing here? These are wonderful people, but I don't belong here. And it just started to go downhill at that point. I was leaving the party and it was a new home to me. And I went, I actually, this isn't even a factor of alcohol. I think I had half of a glass of red wine. Um, anyway, I left the party, stepped out onto the front porch, and misstepped the first step, landed flat on my butt, and twisted my ankle. Pretty badly, actually. And in fairness to myself, I was carrying a box, so my visibility was somewhat reduced. I was carrying a box of everybody leaves with like party favors and stuff and food. And, really, I was lucky I didn't break anything. But for a moment, I was like out of my fog. It like really shook me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what has happened? Did I break something? So I did not. I was okay. I was with a friend driving together with her. So I was able to get home. Then when I got home and I'm icing, what is called rice, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So I'm doing the rice thing with my ankle. I'm feeling lonely. I'm regretting that I went. And I realized that my purse that I had specially pulled out to be festive and go to the party with, um, I had left at the party. And it just so happens that this purse was my mom's favorite purse that she passed on to me. It was a beautiful Coach bag, just a little one, but nice for like going out or something. And I'd left it there. And so I called the hostess, and yes, she was like felt terrible that I had already broken my, or not broken, but twisted my ankle. And now that my had a purse that I had to go and fetch like the next day. So um, that was the first part of where things went wrong. But then the next day, I woke up to messages that, and again, this was last year. I woke up to messages that people were testing positive for COVID from the party, and I thought, good Lord, what is next? I felt fine that day, but then soon after, I started to feel bad and probably wouldn't have tested myself, but since I knew that this was like an event where other people had it, I mean, it just felt like a cold. I tested myself and it turned out I had COVID, and then I actually started to feel much worse as time went on. So this party just seemed like a bad dream for me, with everything that was going on. And um, looking back, my body was not ready for socializing on that scale. I was tired. I was exhausted from my grief. Do you feel exhausted from your grief? I mean, I still have days. I'm so much better now, but I still have days, and I allow myself to have those days where grief kind of feels messy and I feel exhausted. Um, and also, my mind was pretty foggy, right? I was in this grief fog, is what we call it. So it was really hard to connect to people in that kind of setting. There was too much going on. So I was overstimulated by it. So it was really kind of a shutdown scenario for me. And so, how did I wind up there, right? How did I make this decision? Well, I really didn't listen to what I needed when I chose to go to this party. And hello, folks, I'm a therapist, I'm a grief coach. And yes, I made a mistake. We make mistakes in our healing, we all do. I didn't listen to my body. I wasn't paying attention to what my body needed and what it was trying to tell me. Um, it was telling me I was exhausted. I mean, grief is hard work. It takes a lot of our energy. And the truth is, grief emotions that come up sometimes unpredictably, they will flow through us much more easily, with more ease when we take care of our bodies, when we take care of ourselves. Our body is literally a grief vessel, right? We have to get rest. We have to eat healthy. We have to have downtime, and we have to choose things that feel aligned with where we are in our grief journey. So, the distraction that I thought I needed because I was fearful of feeling so much grief, it wasn't a holiday party. That's not the distraction I needed. I think we all realize that now. I needed to connect on a much smaller scale. And that's what I did after that. I went to tea with two close friends. We had a holiday tea together. It was lovely. It was just what I needed. It was with people that I could um, allow myself to be just where I was in my grief that day. So, I just want to say, I think these lessons come from, what I'm about to share with you, uh, what I learned from that party, but also just what I've learned from working with clients who are grieving, what I've learned from doing years of grief therapy and also doing grief coaching with people and guiding them. So grab a pen and paper if you want, or if you're better at just listening. Um, again, you can listen to this over and over again. Um, but the first thing, there's four things. So the first thing that I just spoke about, this is like the number one thing. You have to listen to yourself this holiday season. I mean, really, you need to do this every day, and I've gotten good about doing that now. But the holidays, it's easy to sort of let things go. There's a lot going on. And so we can really tune in to everything around us instead of tuning in what's inside of us. So I didn't do this when I decided to go to the party. I didn't listen. I want you to do better for yourself. Okay. Learn from my mistake. So stop and pay attention. Each day have if you're the type of person that needs a special time, a regular time to do it so that you do it every day, then find that regular time. For me, I kind of see how I'm feeling in the morning. I get up, I do my hypnosis meditations, I go through my and check messages for work, and then I'll even do some journaling. And I usually then have a sense of what is it that I'm going to need to guide me through that day. So listen to yourself, stop and pay attention. Our minds don't always know, right? Sometimes we have to listen to what our bodies are saying. How do you feel? So you can ask yourself these questions like, what are you noticing in your body? Is it tight somewhere? Do you have an anxiety in the pit of your stomach? Do you feel, lethargic with low energy? Listen to what your body's telling you, because that's how it communicates what it needs. And then you can choose what's best for you once you have that information. And I will tell you, other people don't always know what's best for you. In fact, you know what's best for you if you listen. Okay, so while you don't want to close yourself out to other people for support and advice, ultimately, only you know what your grief feels like and what you need. Okay, so number two, I want you to block out time on your calendar to be alone. Yes, I know we talk about needing connection and grief and being with other people, but we also have to have time alone. And that's going to look different for everyone. Everyone's grief journey is different. Um, I tend to need a lot of it, especially as I start my day. And then it kind of grounds me to be able to work with people, to provide for my family, and to do the things that I need, the daily things I need to do. So block out time on your calendar to be alone and allow yourself to cry, to sob, to laugh. It doesn't have to be something negative, to journal, to talk to yourself. Maybe it's to talk to your loved one. I don't do it every day now, but for a while there, when my mom first passed away, every night I would say good night and I love you, and I would say it out loud, and it just made me feel good, and it helped me connect to her in a positive way. um, Meditate. I do meditation and hypnosis meditation almost every day. Rare is the day that I miss it, and it is a game changer for grief. And it's unfortunate a lot of grief programs out there don't incorporate this. That's something that I realized as a provider, but also as a person in grief, that it's something we need to include. We need, something happens to our brains in grief. We need some rewiring to be done. And it has made a huge difference in my own resiliency. And that's what we need in grief. We can't make grief go away, but we grow around our grief through our resiliency. So again, this blocking your time out on your calendar can be for that meditation, for prayer. If you are a spiritual person and praying is important to you, make time for that. I think you get the picture, okay? So emotions that aren't processed get stored. And guess where? They get stored in the body. And then later, if you don't do anything about it, it becomes baggage. So we want to practice boundaries around blocking time out on our calendar for us. Lots of ways to do it. As I said, every morning I have time that I've blocked out for me and my grief healing. Will have an occasional day, an entire day. I might not even know what I'm doing, but I will block the day off. No work, no friend obligations or adventures, nothing. So that day or beforehand, I can decide what I want to do. And it just is so liberating to be able to have that space. Um, okay, so again, boundaries are really important when you're trying to heal. All right, so the third thing is, as I've kind of referenced to this already, but your body is your grief vessel, so we have to tend to our physical health. And that means getting sleep, resting when you need it, napping when you need it and when you can, drinking water, staying hydrated, walking, It's important to move your body. If you're able to walk, moving your body, walking is a great way to move emotions through you and release them, okay? And it keeps us, it tends to our physical health. We need to eat healthy foods. And this is because grief is hard work. It is another job. It's hard on our nervous systems and it's hard on our physical bodies. We process grief both in our mind, but we also process it in our body. You need to take care of it so it functions efficiently, so that emotions flow through and then out of you. Okay? So that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing, and actually, I'm noticing here, I'm saying four and I have five. There's five things. So here's your bonus after number four. Number four is taking a break from traditions that are too painful or too exhausting. I remember talking to my dad last year, and we were like, "Are we doing cards this year?" I mean, it just having to do Christmas cards, even though it was an annual tradition, and I normally enjoy it, but it was like too painful. I mean, too painful to have to acknowledge the loss for him. So he decided not to do the cards. I actually wound up being able to do a little postcard, and on one side I had a little memorial statement and picture to my mother there, and it was sort of my way of honoring her during this difficult holiday. So for me, it felt right to do it. At first, it didn't. So you kind of have to work it through. To my father, no, he wasn't going to do cards this year. I mean, I know people that have just done completely different things and broken tradition. And what I want to say to you is that traditions, if you think about them, why do we have them? We have them because they're meant to connect us to gratitude and love over the years, right? If it's not doing those things, if it's too painful, if it's too hard, and you can't see that gratitude and love, then set a boundary around it. Say no, thank you. Skip the tree, skip the cards, skip the party, whatever it is that's too heavy right now. Give yourself permission to take a break. It's not being selfish. I want to tell you that. Like, I'm sure the idea of not doing something when you've always done it may feel like you're being selfish or even disloyal to the person that you're grieving, like if it's something your mom or dad enjoyed. But honestly, if it's too painful, I doubt your mom or dad would want you to force yourself through it and be miserable, right? It's not being selfish. It's actually showing yourself compassion. It doesn't mean that next year you can't go back to it, but you might not. And that kind of brings me to number five, the bonus. So doing something completely different this year should not be off the table. Trying to force your holiday season to look like all the other years, I'm telling you now, is a lost cause. You'll never get there. You can't have everything be the same when it's not, when someone's not there. And it's unfair to you to try to make it happen, right? To force it. So you can have some fun actually planning something totally uncharacteristic or rebellious or however you want to do it. You can be creative. Maybe it's starting something completely new. Maybe it's being somewhere new to celebrate the holiday. If you have a family and you're all grieving, maybe it's getting the whole family involved in a new tradition this year. And then you can decide next year if you want to keep doing it, right? There's no rules here. They're only your rules and your pressures that you're putting on yourself. So no one when you do something new, it it helps lessen the comparison. So you're not going to be sitting there comparing it to last year because you didn't do it last year. And that's important to have that refreshing sort of perspective with doing something new, because there is so much there are so many painful reminders with the holidays. Um, so I am on my second Christmas without my mom, and I'm pleased to tell you, yes, I'm no longer in a fog. That did pass. Um, as I said, I check in with myself every day. I have to. Um, I spend time now with people that fill my cup, or if you a better way to say this, with people that charge my battery, that don't drain me. Um, those are the people that I choose to spend time with because grief is hard work. And so we have to set boundaries on what is good for us, right? I allow myself, as I said, to have that messy day. Even 16 months later, I allow myself to have that messy day or messy moment in grief. There's no right or wrong way to do grief. I want you to hear that again. You can't get grief wrong. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Okay? So if a messy day comes up, you haven't done something wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You aren't going backwards, even. This is just how grief is. Okay? Typically, those messy days and moments become less intense over time. They become less frequent over time. Um, and if you are stuck, then that might be time to reflect a little bit more on what is it that you need and what support do you need, okay, to get you unstuck. I also find ways to connect to my mom now and the beauty of who she was. So there's not really a day that I don't wear a piece of her jewelry because it feels like she's close to me. Usually it's a ring. When I do my work with my clients, that is 100% dedicated to my relationship with her and the beautiful woman that she was. I haven't talked about that very much. That's probably for another episode, but she was a pediatric nurse. She was a hospice volunteer. She was the best grandma. I could go on and on, but most of her life she just dedicated to helping other people. And so when I work with other people, that's me healing and honoring her as well. So I hope this resonated with you. I hope that you can use these four plus a bonus um, essentials that I've talked about today. That is all for now. Please share this with someone who needs it. Listen to it again if you need it. And I want you to know I wish you much love. I wish you much peace. And I wish you much healing.